Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters and viewers of Iqra TV. Welcome to another edition of Real Talk. I'm your host Iqbal Bana. Nice to be with you today after the election and the post-election post-mortem is now taking place, particularly within the Muslim community. I hope, as we've been encouraging you over the last 2 weeks with colleagues and friends who've been coming here and joining me, that you all exercise your democratic right and went out to vote. As I said to you on those 2 programs, we cannot tell you who to vote for, but what we asked you to do is please go out and vote. Please make sure that you consider who you vote for and look at which party is providing the best opportunities for the Muslim community. The result is out, and I think many people have been surprised with the outcome of the result, least of all the Prime Minister Boris Johnson with the majority that he's received. I think every pundit before the election was saying that the chances were that this was going to be a hung parliament. It hasn't happened, and the Labour Party has lost major areas. Those areas which had been staunchly Labour, working class people who'd worked in the past in the mines, in the textile industries, in engineering, hard grafting communities, which have been devastated over the last 10-15 years because industry has changed, have all turned against the Labour Party. Now, several people have tried to analyse what the reasons behind that was. We're not going to be doing that today. What I want to talk about today is the impact of the result and the outcome of the election on the Muslim community. Before the election, we saw a lot of Islamophobia, particularly from other faith communities, being directed at us. We saw the Jewish community, for example, having a go at the leader of the Labour Party for his support for Kashmir, for Palestine, etc. And they encouraged the Jewish community to vote in a particular way. Similarly, the Hindu community and parts of the Sikh community also did something very similar, that they gave direction to their communities to which way they should be voting. The Muslim community, being the Muslim community, was always disunited, always fractured, always making sure that we bring each other down, had no such leadership in the community. And I'm not saying that that is the reason why, but maybe that's a lesson that we need to learn for the future. So now we have a majority Tory government. We know some of the policies that they're looking at and they're developing, but the impact of all those policies, whether it's around health, education, economic regeneration, development, etc., will have an impact on every one of us. So today I have a special guest, not a stranger. He's been on this program before. He's come all the way from Manchester in this atrocious weather that we have this evening, and I'm deeply grateful to him that he has taken the trouble to come with me. So brothers and sisters, I have with me Yusuf Dar from the Muslim Safety Forum. Assalamu alaikum, Yusuf. Welcome to the program. Nice to have you here, and thank you for coming across the Pennines, the better part of the country that we have here. How are you? You okay?
Jazakallah wa alaikum salam, and thank you for having me on the show again. Not only was he a distance, but Manchester United are playing tonight.
Oh,
so
are they?
I might be missing the game as well.
Oh, are you? Are you a Man United fan?
Yes, I've got to make a confession.
Can't be bad. Don't worry. So am I, for my sins, and all my children are Liverpool fans. But yeah, welcome to the program. Obviously, you are politically neutral in your role.
Yes.
I presume. Now, obviously, this election has been a surprise to, as I said, to many people.
Yes.
Did it come as a surprise to you as well?
It did. It came as a huge surprise because, like many, I had a feeling that the Conservatives would win, but I thought it would be a hung parliament as we've kind of discussed, many of us, and that they would have to rely on having a partnership with somebody.
Right.
And I was looking before the results, who are they going to partner with, because the SNP wasn't on board. Will they go with the DUP again, or the Green Party, depending on the number of votes? So the majority was massive surprise. But yeah, that's a mandate of the people.
And how do you think this result will be interpreted by the wider Muslim community? Obviously, a lot of people are not comfortable with the idea at this moment in time because they've seen what's happened in the past. The Conservative Party has not really addressed Islamophobia, for example.
Yeah.
They've tried to sort of dilute it by saying we'll have an inquiry across all hate crimes, whereas people like Baroness Wasi and others have been asking for a specific inquiry into Islamophobia within the Conservative Party. So bearing that in mind, do you feel comfortable in the knowledge that we have a government in place that may not understand some of the impact of Islamophobia on the wider Muslim community?
Yeah, Iqbal, that's a huge concern, because if you look at previously, not just with previous Conservative governments, but Boris Johnson's pre-election reign, in some of the things and the rhetoric that was coming out of Downing Street and others did cause concern. And then there was an opportunity for him to put that to bed during the election process, which wasn't done, as he said, whether it's on Islamophobia or whether it's about the general narratives that were being spread around through part of individuals involved with that. So I think that will create a hugely uncertain future and apprehension in the community as to what's really going to happen, and are we going to continue down that path of where we were pre-election, or is this government finally going to stamp its authority, take on what its promise was in dealing with Islamophobia, and work for all communities rather than isolate certain ones?
So in your organisation, Muslim Safety Forum, which has been working very hard over many, many years around protection of the Muslim communities in Islam, how do you see yourselves working moving forward, knowing where we are at this moment in time?
I think
your work is extremely valuable and important.
Well, I think we've all got to work within the framework that we have. I think what we can't do is disassociate ourselves from the normal process of engaging with partners, whether it's a local authority or whether it's your local MP. I think we've just got to take that challenge on. What it does, it probably makes it more difficult and challenging, if I'm being honest, because we at times don't see that willingness to engage, and with not just local but nationally with the Muslim community from government and the position we're at. So that will obviously create a negativity, and it will reduce the opportunities, I feel, with everything that's gone on before. I hope I'm wrong, and that's not to say we will stop, because I think we have to continue. We must continue down that road. We haven't got the luxury of standing back and saying we don't need to.
You can't afford not to engage.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. So in the sense, in your opinion, what are the key issues that are now facing the Muslim community, as a whole, around the nation?
Well, I think you talked on earlier. I think a unified approach, because if you look at other communities, whether the Hindu community, the Jewish community, or the Sikh community, I think they're fortunate in having a one nation position, but that also helps them to focus into what they really want. We might come from 52 different nations, and there's a lot of division, and also lacking is key leadership, I feel. I think at times, if there was any criticism, we've got good people as well in the community, I've got to be honest. This is aimed at everybody, but I think we could do with our leadership being better and more understanding of others to create the environment where there is more of a unified strategic approach on how we deal with things, whether it's Islamophobia or how it is we engage with government or local politicians.
When you say others, are you talking about bridge building with other communities?
Absolutely.
Deprived communities, etc.
Yes.
So how do you see that working forward? Because there's been a rift that has been, there's a wedge has been sort of nailed into the relationship between the Muslim community, for example, and the Hindu community.
Yes.
Which has been very apparent in this election.
Yes.
And the Muslim community and the Jewish community. Particularly the accusations against the Labour Party about anti-Semitism, and that they failed to address to a certain extent. How can we mend that bridge and that relationship between communities? Because the Hindu community was extremely vociferous in its condemnation of the Labour Party, right? And similarly, the Jewish community, the chief rabbi took the unprecedented step of actually issuing a letter, didn't he?
Yes.
So saying that he was fearful about the position of the Labour Party when it comes to anti-Semitism. So how can we do this? Because we're living in very challenging times, aren't we?
Well, I think one of the things is I'm not, as you said earlier, I'm not linked to any particular party, and I refuse to do so. I'm not a party person or individual. I think what we need to do is take a step back and have a look at this. I think clearly there is a lot of work to be done as a result of the issues that you're raising. For example, the Hindu community, to be fair, not the individuals who spoke were very pro the Indian government or the BJP government and very pro BJP, and they openly said that, many of them. But that's not to say they speak on behalf of all the Hindus, because there are many Hindus who don't side
I
with-
agree.
and
Same
vice versa with the Jewish
community as well,
community.
yes, Jewish
Because Jewish scholars came on board, Jewish rabbis came on board, and challenged what the chief rabbi had said. Nevertheless, I think there is going to be how can I put it, a challenge now on how do we engage with those communities that openly came out and encouraged certain politicians not to vote purely based on some of their own views about the leadership's relationship with Muslims.
Do you see this government? I mean, we've always resisted in this country of importing issues that confront India, Pakistan, Bangladesh into this country.
Yes,
Do you see change taking place now?
absolutely. I think not just here but across the world. If you look at America, you look at Europe, I think what's happened is, and I'll try to talk about the Indian regime more than Israel, for obvious reasons, because at the moment India is allegedly the biggest democracy in the world, and I would challenge that and also challenge its secularism. But the issue here is the BJP, which is a very extreme network, including the RSS. Outwardly, you could even say potentially fascist. If they are propagating those views on our soil, and the anecdotal evidence of that was when the Kashmiri people in the UK wanted to lawfully protest outside the Indian High Commission, whether it was on Diwali or not, there was no business case to cancel that, yet it got cancelled purely as a result of the Indian government directly interfering into the affairs of the UK. And I feel that was wrong, because we're a democracy, and I'm a big fan of that word, but also living that. We don't just need to be doing the talk, but we need to walk the walk. Because there was no evidential reason, even as a police officer, that I see, because the excuse given was that there was fearful of violence, incitement of hate, and it was a holy Diwali day. Unfortunately, the protest fell on that day. There'd been numerous protests 2 or 3 weeks before, which were far more violent, that were not stopped. And there had been hardly any violence in the protest before in the Indian High Commission. So looking outwardly in, I've got to say, it was very political, and the politics came from outside. We need to be looking at what's best for Britain, not be influenced by outside influences, as you've said. And it appears to be gaining ground on outside factors having an impact on us.
So do you think that the government is now more mindful of being aware of what is happening in the Indian subcontinent, and then using some of that knowledge to inform policies in this country? Because if that is the case, then we're in for a very difficult time, in my view, aren't we?
I think you're right. I think it's obvious if you look at the kind of messaging coming out of 10 Downing Street pre and post election. For example, the first thing Boris Johnson, if I'm right in saying, said that he intends to work very closely with the Modi government. And here's a government that, we can talk about other governments around the world, they're not alone, including some in the Muslim world, but here's a government that is openly flouted its responsibilities towards democracy and human rights, whether it's women's rights, whether it's Kashmiri's rights, or rights of general citizens, and it's gone about it that way. I think that is hugely damaging, and my view, again, it's very political, and it's based around trade, because India is a growing economy, a huge economy. I think we as a nation need to stop and take stock of that. If we are to propagate democracy and sell democracy as the way forward, we need to actually deliver it and make sure we're actually seen to be doing that as well.
I agree with you. I'm sure, like me and Yusuf and others, a lot of our viewers must have been surprised at the outcome of the election, and must be reflecting on what has happened, in terms of the result of the election and the government that's come into power with the majority it has. And I'm sure every one of you will be sat there thinking, what is the future? I heard somebody sent me a message that there was a gentleman in Manchester who has been feeding the homeless for a number of years. He's now thinking of leaving the United Kingdom and moving out. Apparently this story appeared in the Metro, so I don't know whether Yusuf, you picked it up in your neck of the woods.
I've not picked that particular one.
Yeah, and I was looking for that in the Metro, but I couldn't find it. But it's a big spread about this gentleman who has been feeding, I think, about 80 or 90 people a week for years now. Those who sleep rough, who have not had proper meals, opportunity to have proper meals, and he's from the Muslim community, and there was a picture of him, and he was saying that my children are fearful of their future in this country, and they've asked me to start looking at moving out. Now, obviously, people must be worried, and we'd like to hear your views. So, if you are, one of those people who want to share your thoughts, your ideas, your fears, your concerns, or if you think that this is an opportunity for this country to move forward, then please ring in. The number is going to appear on the screen very soon, and we'd like to hear your thoughts as well. I mean, in terms of young people, obviously, what do you think this is going to mean for young people in this country, young Muslims in particular, with all this rise of Islamophobia that is taking place? I mean, do you see Islamophobia getting even worse now?
I think all the evidence proves to that,
Right.
unfortunately. As much as I'd like to say to the contrary, I think all the evidence shows that, in terms of, if you look at the religious hate crime, last year, Home Office's own figures, 57% of all religious hate crime, and that's 57%,
Right.
was Islamophobic.
Yes.
And all the evidence shows an upward rise. Although the reporting went down, yet all evidence, whether it's from Telmama or BBC sources or other research, shows that the rate of hate crime is going up, specifically Islamophobia. So that should be a worry for not just for the Muslims, it should be the worry for all of us, because the level of hate crime has gone up in schools again.
Right.
There was a report. So we really need to be looking after our future and making sure we create the right environment for our younger generations, where they can flourish and enjoy each other, rather than create divisions at that level at schools. And that's the worrying part, is we're seeing this at schools now.
Right, because I mean, even a few years ago, there was this issue that actually the Sun picked up that 75% of bullying that takes place in school is Islamophobic.
Yes.
Now, in the current environment,
Yes.
with the Prime Minister refusing to apologise for some of his comments that he's made, and he was challenged a number of times on, during the election process by several media organisations, that sends a message to the Muslim community, doesn't it?
It sends not just the Muslim community. You've got to remember the far-right extremists who are very emboldened at this moment in time around the world,
Right,
from India to America. That is just the message they want to hear.
right,
So taking aside the Muslims, who are 4 million, the 57 million in the UK approximately, the non-Muslims, I'm not saying they're all far-right. Far from it.
course not,
Britain's
yes.
very, 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 very balanced.
The majority are
absolutely.
very honest,
Absolutely.
down-to-earth, simple,
Absolutely.
welcoming,
Yeah,
people.
and very challenging of those very things. But the small minority, again, who are far-right associated and have those views, they will be emboldened on this. So they, along with the Muslim community, would be feeling the opposite sides. The far-right's emboldened. The young Muslim community or people from the community would be in fear and concern about where we're going with this.
And in response for the future, do you think that the Muslim community now needs to wake up and take more proactive action in becoming more engaged in the political process of this country, so that they can influence
Yes.
future directions of policy and service delivery, etc.?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, one of the key things out of this, the learning thing for us, is when things haven't worked, you'll know that in any organisation, in yourself, you take a step back and review the stuff. I think we need to review how we've done things. And one of the lessons is absolutely that. I think we have been very kind of ad hoc into how we engage with politicians and partners. I think what we need to do out of here is key. Go back to the drawing board. My view is I think we need to be more proactive, more engaging, and there needs to be some longevity rather than one-offs where we invite politicians in, give them samosas and biryani and cups of tea, take selfies and off they go. I think there needs to be more of a business and professional approach where we engage with our MPs. Each one of us, I'd urge all of us to engage with our MPs,
Right,
break the barriers, and have this engagement with them regularly
right.
over time.
I mean, young people, you work with young people. Did you feel that the young people are engaged in the election process?
Not really, but that would probably equally apply to the non-Muslim community as well. I think one of the things is I think the younger communities or the younger individuals in the community don't see that as a big issue, because one, they feel totally disfranchised from that for obvious reasons, because of what's been happening with politics in terms of
Generally, politics
generally in
yeah.
terms of politicians about the lack of accountability, the expenses scandal, etc. So there's a disconnect. But I feel as they grow older, as you're coming to the stage where you're at university and pre-university, you start seeing what's happening and a bit more in tune with the world, and I think that's where people kind of look at how they can engage better and do things better.
As Yusuf says, we do face some challenges, and obviously, we need to take some step back and have a reflection, sort of, reflected look at what's happened and what its implications are. Because, as I said, in my view, the implications of this current government could have a major impact on the lives of the Muslim community, depending what route they take. Now, one thing that we have to say is the government has done so, and it is a Tory government that set up the Anti-Muslim Hate Crime Advisory Group, which was set up by Baroness Wasi. That has been going on for quite some time. I'm not sure what the position is with the group at this moment in time. Ostensibly, it's still there in the structure, but they will have a major role to play in helping to shape policies of the government and tackling Islamophobia. Whether they're allowed to do so or not, I'm not sure. I sat on that group for over 8 years, I think it was, before I came off it, and this is something that we will have to wait and see. Now, as I said, in the part of the program, this is your program. This is your opportunity to share your thoughts, your ideas, your concerns. If opportunities as well, if you feel that they are, that we should be taking up. So we're going for a break now. Inshallah, we'll be coming back soon. Think about what this impact is on you and your family. We'd love to hear from you. So if you feel like it, please call in and share your thoughts with us, because this is not going to go away. Inshallah, we'll be back soon. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.